It's been a long time coming, but we're back. Hello and welcome to episode number 25 of Positions Net. I'm your host, Grant Peters, the founder of Auto Racing Analytics. And it's been over a year, well over a year, since I last did one of these, but we are back. Thank you all for joining me. And in 2026, I'm going to make it my goal to, hopefully weekly, have conversations with you guys about NASCAR analytics on this platform, because Twitter alone isn't going to be good enough to make all the points that we want to make. And as you guys know by now, it's hard to have real conversations on there. So we can do that here instead. I tried doing that on YouTube. Thank you to those who are joining us there. But unfortunately, YouTube videos are really effort intensive. And I just don't have the time to make them at the quality that I want to. So if somebody wants to help me make them, let me know. Reach out to me on social media. You guys know where to find me. But this is what we're going to try for 2026. Today, we're going to be making predictions on where I think every single driver in the 2026 season is going to finish in the points, all the way from 36 to 1. Thank you to NASCAR for actually making this possible, because with the playoffs, there was really no reason to do something like this because there was no cohesive storyline across the year. Now, I did want the full season points. I think everybody knows that. But we got the chase, and honestly, I'm happy with it because 25 points first to second at the end of 10 races is enough to where that's a pretty big bonus. It's going to be worth talking the whole season about who's the points leader. And then obviously when we get to the chase, it's just going to be a straight up points race. So thank you, NASCAR, for giving us something to talk about. Let's get started. We'll start with number 36. I have Cody Ware. Honestly, this one's pretty easy. Look, any time in this video when I'm talking about older 2024 stuff, speed-wise, I'm going to be talking about median lap rank because we only started doing optimal lap rank in 2025. But going forward, 2025 onward, that's the metric we're going to talk about for speed. So when we look at the 51 car of Rick Ware Racing back in 2024, when they had Justin Haley in the car, they had a average median lap rank on non-drafting ovals of a 25.1, which is really respectable, actually. And I thought that team had taken a step forward. Now, Cody Ware gets back in the car for 2025, and their average optimal lap rank is a 34.6. That's almost a 10-position drop. And really all they did was change the driver. At some point, I think it's worth discussing if Cody Ware is really ready for a Cup Series ride. I'd like to see him try maybe the trucks or something, get his feet under him a little bit more before he comes up to the Cup level. And then we could try somebody else in that car that I think's ready for it. Justin Haley gave that thing a great run. I really wanted to see how the Corey LaJoie Justin Haley trade experiment was going to work out. I wanted to see if Corey LaJoie was going to be able to repeat the success of Haley in the 51, but we didn't get that. So for now, with nothing changing on that car, I have a hard time believing that they're going to progress forward any further than they have. At number 35, I've got Cole Custer. Look, in 2025, Cole Custer honestly wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I look at the metrics. The 41 car is the second slowest car to only Cody Ware on both intermediates and short tracks per optimal lap rank. So with that in mind, I can't see him finishing anywhere but second to last just because the speed isn't there. If we move up to 34th, I've got Riley Herbst. He's a bit of an interesting conversation. There's a couple positives I can draw from Riley Herbst's rookie season. He was 11th in intermediate track restart retention rate. That is pretty good for a rookie. Can't deny it. Fortunately, when we look on the non-drafting oval side, the short tracks included, it's not much to talk about. He also was top 10 for one of the lowest crash frequencies in 2025. But looking at those two metrics alone, there's just not much to build on without some pretty significant better speed. Both his teammates are easily playoff contending speed cars. He's not. If we look at the driver rating, I came up with an independent driver rating. I haven't named it yet, but in the offseason, I made one of those. I've posted about it a little bit. You'll see more of it in 2026. Basically what I've done is I've found a way to combine restarts, passing, defending, and lap time consistency for driver-only metrics, and then weight them accordingly so that we can get an overall driver skill rating. And Riley Herbst ranks second to the bottom, only above Cody Ware. Now, when I made that metric, it was supposed to be like a 0 to whatever metric. It wasn't really supposed to be 4 negatives, but the two bottom guys did end up going negative. Riley Herbst had a negative 6.1. And then when we look on the speed side of things, there's not much to talk about. This car is 34th fastest on intermediate tracks, 25th fastest on the short tracks. That's just not going to cut it. He's 35th in short run speed and 31st in long run speed. There's not much to write home about. In 33rd, I have Ty Dillon. Look, I actually have a lot to like on this guy. And Ty Dillon over the past few years has actually turned himself into a pretty respectable driver, pretty serviceable driver for those mid to backfield teams. He was the third best passer on intermediates in 2025. That's really good, regardless of the speed car you're in. Now, he was third worst in defending, which kind of nulls most of what he's doing on the passing side. All of his other metrics, though, are pretty middle of the field, which is good because, in a back of the field car, putting up midfield driver metrics, that's good. That's punching above your weight class. The problem is this car there's just not enough speed in the 10 car. If we go back, 2024, when this was the 31 car with Daniel Hemrick, they had an average median lap rank on non-drafting ovals of a 27.9. In 2025, if we look at optimal lap rank, this 10 car was a 29.1. That's a whole nother position slower, and they were already pretty slow. Look, with Colleague having a lot more to juggle with their truck program, I don't see this team making a step forward. There are a lot of teams that might be making a step forward. I got to leave the 10 car right where he was in 2025. He'll stay 33rd. Let's move up to 32nd. I've got the 7 car of now Daniel Suarez finishing here. So in 2025, the 7 car was 31st in overall points. The 99 was 29th. Now, here's my problem with Suarez. I see this as an incredibly lateral move. Reason being, from Haley to Suarez, I'm saying. Reason being, in 2025, the 1 car was a top 15 car on non-drafting ovals by all metrics. Suarez was the 26th fastest car on adjusted optimal lap rank. The 7 car that he's getting into was only 2 positions slower than the 99, and that's a Spire car compared to a Trackhouse car. That's really concerning. I don't foresee him being the magic bullet that's going to make the 7 car go faster. After what Justin Haley did at Rick Ware, I had quite a bit of faith in him, and then he went to Spire, and things just didn't work out, just like how things just didn't work out with Corey LaJoie. At some point, I got to ask the question, are we sure it's the driver? Because I actually think Corey LaJoie was a pretty serviceable driver for that team. He was slowly helping build that program forward. He knew what was going on. I thought he was the right guy. Now, switching to Justin Haley, I'm like, look, I understand. Haley was a very, very good-looking prospect at the time. There was a lot to like. But I don't think one poor year, not even poor, below average year, less than expectations, I don't think that deserved the treatment that Haley got. And unfortunately, with the patience Spires had with guys, I don't foresee Suarez being the genius fix to that either. When we compare their numbers, Justin Haley has a better retention rate than Suarez by 7%. But if we look at passing surplus, which is just combining the pass efficiency with the defense rating so that we get how much better your pass efficiency is than your defense rating, it's basically, are you passing more efficiently than you're getting passed? So if we look at passing surplus, Suarez is 6% better, and Haley was 7% better on restarts. It's just, do you want your good on the front end of the run or the back end of the run? Like, I don't see this being a winning move. It seems to be lateral at best. Let's move on to 31st. I've got Ricky Stenhouse. Look, this team is a hard one to judge. This team has the ability to be a top 15 points contender, legitimately. I've made my arguments for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. before on this podcast. You can scroll all the way back. It's like episode 3. I made a legitimate argument way back then, wasn't very intelligent, that Ricky Stenhouse has the ability to be a NASCAR Hall of Famer. And while time is dwindling on that claim, I still believe that is possible. With just a couple of things. Go back, listen to that. Crazy take. But I think it could be done. And I still believe in Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s talent. If we look at his metrics last year, passing, defending, starting, all those are in the mid to upper 20s, which is fine for the speed of car he's in. They're not great. He's done better before, but that's okay. The reason I have him first is this team was around 30th in all major speed categories. So I just don't see him being any higher than 31st with other teams progressing forward, as I've said before. But there's nothing stopping them. They could shock us all, and they could make the playoffs or make the chase. Gosh, that's going to be really hard to get used to, but I'm happy about it. Stenhouse, 31st. Moving on to 30th, I've got Noah Gragson. Now, Gragson in 2025 was 4 positions worse than this. He was way down in 34th. This car that he's driving, according to optimal lap rank, is a top 25 car on intermediates and a top 30 car on short tracks. But he finished 33rd in the points with it. That's not great. Couple positives on Noah Gragson. He is a top 15 driver in restart retention rate. That's very good. for him, especially in that car. Now, the only reason he finished so far down the points order is because of that crash rate. It was around 50% crash rate. He's crashing in half the races. That's horrific. He also had a terminal crash rate that's putting him out of nearly a quarter of the races. So with numbers like that, it's going to be hard to finish any better than 33rd in the points. But I don't think those crash numbers can possibly be that bad another year. Like, at some point, he's going to figure it out. He's going to keep getting faster. He's going to get it under control. Move him up 4 spots. Just take a couple crashes out of the picture, bring home the finish. He'll get those positions easily. The car is getting quicker. Just above him in 29th, I've got his teammate Todd Gilliland. Now, literally at the last second before I went to record this video, I flipped Todd Gilliland and his teammate Zane Smith. Reason being, Todd Gilliland and the 34, they have a car that's 27th and 31st on short tracks and intermediate tracks speed, respectively. The thing that's helping him is he's got one of the lowest terminal crash rates in the series. He's also a top 5 restarter with a restart retention rate of 74.6. That's fantastic for the speed of this car. Problem is, he is 25th or worse for lap time consistency on intermediates and short tracks. So at the moment, I don't see where an uptick in speed from 27th and 31st is going to come for this team. Because of that, with other guys moving up, specifically in SVG, some others, I don't see him getting any higher than 29th at the moment. That's where I'm going to put him, right above his teammate. Now, in between Todd Gilliland and teammate Zane Smith, in 28th place, I've got the 3 of Austin Dillon. Now, I may come to regret this decision because I'm putting the 24th fastest car on non-drafting ovals in 28th place, which is pretty low. But I'm starting to run out of upside on Austin Dillon. He's not a terrible driver. He's probably going to win Richmond again. Problem is, he's just kind of okay. He's a bottom 8 restarter. He's maintaining position under 60% of the time, and he's only 20th in passing surplus. Essentially, at a 0 efficiency and defense rating are virtually equal. He's entering his age 35 season, and as we know from David Smith's work of past, age 39, typically the peak. I believe that age has been driven down by the next-gen car. I could come to regret putting him this low, as opposed to putting him around 25th, maybe, with the speed of his car. But there's other teams that seem primed to move up, and Austin Dillon's been pretty stagnant. I'm leaving him 28th. 27th, I already mentioned him a little bit, Zane Smith. This team, I may have too low. I have a lot of faith in Zane Smith after 2025. In the middle, or early in the year, I wasn't as high on the Zane Smith prospect as many others were. Reason being, if we just look at the metrics, there was a lot to like, but I feel like it wasn't as much as people are making it out to be. I'm starting to see it a little bit now that he's able to have some time developing at front row. So we look at his metrics from last year. His teammates, already mentioned, high 20s, low 30s for speed. Zane Smith, 22nd and 21st in intermediate and short track optimal lap rank, respectively. Fantastic numbers. Pretty good jump quicker than both his teammates. Fastest of the front row cars by a good amount. He's 16th and 10th on intermediates and short tracks for lap time consistency. Great speed numbers. We can say from that with pretty good confidence, I think Zane's lap time consistency is contributing to his speed over his teammates. I don't think it's just a car thing. Now, that said, he's fast, but his traffic management numbers leave something to be desired. And that is why I can't go any higher with him than 27th, despite his good speed. He ranked sub-30th in restarting and passing. He's also got a pretty high crash numbers. He's one of the 10 most crash-prone drivers last year. Due to these things, these driver issues, I do think he'll mature out of them eventually. But for now, I think they're going to hold him back. In 26th place, I've got AJ Allmendinger. This team has so much potential, and I really wanted to go higher with him. I didn't really know where to place him. He's actually, they've got a lot of speed. He's 15th in intermediate optimal lap time, or optimal lap rank, and then he's 24th on short tracks, which is pretty good. Those are both higher than I've placed him, which is usually a sign for concern. He's also the 7th most consistent lap time driver on intermediate tracks. That's really good. Not surprising. We've seen AJ excel at places like Homestead. I think he's become a very serviceable driver, specifically on the intermediate tracks, in addition to his road course skill. He's also a top 15 restarter, which is outstanding. Here's where the problem lies. I really want to put AJ significantly higher than he is. The problem is, last year he was only 12th on road course median lap rank. He's also 24th in that short track optimal lap rank, as mentioned, which isn't great. The consistency across the board on this team is lacking for me to put him any higher. He's entering his age 44 season, so he's significantly past that peak age. And the thing that really concerns me, as I mentioned already with Ty Dillon, I'm worried that the Ram truck program is going to be a distraction to the ability for Colleague to continue to grow as a Cup program until they become a Dodge Cup team. So for now, I've got to drop AJ 2 positions from last year, 26th. 25th and 24th, let's knock them both out of the way at the same time because I feel like they run together all the time. Give me the 2 legacy cars, John Hunter Nemechek in 25th, Eric Jones in 24th. Let's talk about John Hunter first. So in 2025, this team didn't have great speed, 29th and 33rd on short tracks and intermediate tracks, respectively. I do not understand how this team managed to pull themselves all the way up to 23rd in the points with that kind of speed. Side, the top 25 for lap time consistency on both those track types, there's not a lot to love. Nemechek had a retention rate of 54%, which is pretty bad. Now, one good thing, he was 11th in intermediate track passing, but when you pair that with his defense rate, which falls in the bottom 10, we're kind of grasping at straws on a top 10 pass efficiency and then a bottom 10 defense rate. The only thing that is redeeming him is he had one of the 5 lowest crash rates in 2025. All that said, Nemechek's put up respectable numbers before. He's been really good in the Xfinity Series. He had a great truck career way back. At Front Row, he impressed when he did his one Cup season before Legacy. I don't think that the hate he gets is deserved. I see 2025 as an off year for him. I think there will be some positive regression in store for this driver. I expect Legacy's speed to improve. The problem is I have to drop him the 2 spots because I just have too many other drivers that I foresee moving forward. So this is where he lands. And I put his teammate Eric Jones right in front of him, even though he probably could go higher because these two seem to run together so consistently. And it just makes sense for me to put them in the same whereabouts. Look, Jones was 16th fastest on intermediate tracks, but then 26th on short tracks. He was a slightly better restarter than Nemechek, but not great at a 60% retention rate. That puts him 25th. His pass efficiencies and defense rating are all within a couple points of Nemechek as well. Overall, I see Jones maintaining his spot over Nemechek, but I think that roughly their metrics show that they should be in the same whereabouts. I think Nemechek will get a little bit better. They should be even closer. Unfortunately, I think other guys are going to improve more than they do. Moving to 23rd, this driver I have dropping 3 spots in overall points from last year. Give me Austin Cindric. This team was 21st in intermediate track optimal lap rank and 7th in short track optimal lap rank. That's pretty quick on the short tracks. Problem is, if we look at the road courses, he's only 30th quick. We thought Austin Cindric was going to be kind of a road course ace in Cup. That hasn't proven to be the case. And then when we look at his other driver numbers, 26th in restarts, 23rd in passing. He's a top 15 defender. There's just not a lot to like. And I have guys moving up around him that I feel more confident in than I do Cindric. I also don't trust Penske to put up consistent speed because they don't tend to do that over the whole course of the year. Rather, they get hot for a season, which is why I have his de facto teammate, Josh Berry, right in front of him in 22nd. Now, 22nd might sound super low for Josh Berry to some of you, but if we actually look at the total points scored, Berry finished 3 spots lower than this last year. Now, this team's got pretty good speed, 18th and 6th quick on intermediates and short tracks. Those numbers would place him higher in the points order than 26th. I'm aware I might be making a mistake putting him this low. It's a mistake I'm willing to make, though, because there are some causes for concern on Josh Berry, particularly even slower than Cindric on the road courses. 34th, really not great. His restarts did look pretty good. He was 11th best restarter last year, but his pass differentials put him around 20th place on intermediates and short tracks. Passing surplus, that is. I can't decide whether I want to call it passing surplus or pass differentials. You guys weigh in what you think on that. The big holdup with him, though, the reason he finished so low last year, he's got the 5th most frequent terminal accidents in the league, and he's the 7th highest crash rate. I hope I haven't gone too low for Berry, but I do think he'll improve over last year because he is over how many points he scored last year, because they do have a pretty quick car, and there's no way that he has one of the highest crash frequencies like that 2 years in a row. Let's move him up 3 spots, 22nd for Josh Berry. Now we're getting to the top half of the field. In 21st, I have the 71 of Michael McDowell. In 2025, McDowell actually finished 18th in the overall points, so higher than I have him for 2026, but here's why. Last year, McDowell had the 28th fastest car and the 22nd fastest car on intermediates and short tracks, respectively. So placing him any higher than 21st seems a little bit weird. I've got a couple reasons that I'm able to place him this high. Reason being, he is a top 15 restarter. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of getting balanced out by the fact that he has the second worst passing surplus in the league. So what he's getting on restarts, he's given back on the long run. Now, he does have some road course skill. In 2025, he was the 6th fastest car on road courses. So for that and his super speedway success, I think he can outperform what the speed of that car should be. I think that car speed on the normal tracks is likely going to place him around 25th. I think he can pull himself up to 21st. No higher, though. In 20th place, this is where I got to drop the other RCR car. Give me Kyle Busch. Everybody keeps saying that they know Kyle Busch isn't over the hill yet. And I agree. I picked him to win a race last year, but Father Time is undefeated, and now he's entering his age 40 season, and it could be any day for Kyle Busch. I just wonder at what point a driver of his caliber is going to decide that this isn't what he wants to be doing anymore. He's driving the 19th fastest car on non-drafting ovals, and it's not really showing any signs of life that it's going to be improving anytime soon. I'll make this point about Trackhouse in a minute, but one of my fears about RCR speed is that pertaining to Austin Dillon. If you don't have the right, we see this in Formula One. It's been talked about before, and I think it's worth applying it to NASCAR. Drivers actually play a pretty significant role in the direction teams can go with the car because it's their field that you're basing this off of. And my fear is if this team only has one valuable data point progress the car speed forward in champion Kyle Busch, and Austin Dillon doesn't have a lot to provide in driving the car forward. Again, not that he's not a serviceable driver. I've said my piece about Dillon. He's perfectly fine. Both of them are. The problem is he going to push your program forward? I'm not really sure. So if we're just working with Kyle Busch, that could be a tall mountain to climb off one data point. Busch clearly still has it. Again, he was a top 10 restarter this year, and he had a top 10 passing surplus. He's clearly still got it as a driver. The problem that I do see for Busch is I believe that the next-gen car, he has struggled in it, and lap time consistency metrics actually show exactly where that problem's been. He is 20th and 28th on intermediates and short tracks for lap time consistency. He hasn't consistently put up good speed close to that optimal lap number. That's pretty telling of a guy who's probably consistently having to wrestle that car, can't really get a rhythm with it to stay on top of his optimal lap. Overall, I can't allow myself to put Kyle Busch any lower than 20th, but there isn't a lot of signs to tell me that I should put him any higher. Let's move on to 19th. I've got the rookie Connor Zilic. I may have absolutely lost my mind, but I have Connor Zilic 18th in the points. I can explain. Last year, SVG in overall points was first. Connor Zilic is getting into a car that was driven by Daniel Suarez. Last year, it was the 26th fastest car on non-drafting ovals, but this is the kid who was top 3 in all important Xfinity Series metrics. Everything. Speed on all track types, and then passing, defending, restarts, however you cut them. Top 3. Every single metric. Best driver in the series. He had it made. Now, I think SVG even left some points on the table in 2025. SVG struggled tremendously, and I think that Connor Zilic's Xfinity success shows that he's going to run better on ovals than SVG did. If Connor Zilic is anywhere in the ballpark of where SVG was on road courses, and then runs better on the ovals, and SVG was first in points, there's no reason Connor Zilic can't finish 19th in the points. Also, SVG had a 50% crash rate. He probably left points on the table in crashing, not just in poor runs. Zilic could go higher than 19th. I need to move on from him, or I'm going to talk myself into moving him up. Let's move on to 18th. I've got Ty Gibbs. I've got some fears with Ty Gibbs. He's driving a Gibbs car, and it's the 16th fastest car on non-drafting ovals. You know, we talk a lot about the 4th Hendrick car, but I think we need to pay some attention to the 4th Gibbs car at some point. He's the 19th best restarter, and he has the 24th best passing surplus. He's first in intermediate lap time consistency, but he's 10th in lap time consistency on the short tracks. So here's what I can see. We've got a driver who's significantly slower than his teammates, 16th fastest on non-drafting ovals, and then all of his driver metrics, for the most part, are in the ballpark, but just lower than his car speed. Only exception being that he's pretty poor on intermediate lap time consistency and above where his car speed is for short track lap time consistency. Now, his crash rates are pretty middle of the road, and he's got the 17th quick car on road courses, so that's not horrific, but that's not going to be the upside either. I mean, he used to excel on road courses in the Xfinity Series. With all that, I'm struggling to find an upside on Ty Gibbs. I picked him to win his first race in 2025, but then from 2024 to 5, it was kind of stagnant, if not a step back. 2026 really needs to be a step forward, or at some point, I think it ought to be Heim time in that 54 car because the numbers just haven't worked out. Let's move on. To 17th, I have Ryan Preece. It was really hard to put the third RFK car outside of the chase, but I have Preece falling 2 positions total points scored. Last year 3 positions total points scored. Last year he was up in 14th for overall points. I have him dropping to 17th. Reason being, this was the 18th fastest car on non-drafting ovals. He's got a pretty middle of the road retention rate. His pass differential is solid at 3.3. That's good enough for 13th in the series. In 2025, he was easily one of the 5 cleanest drivers in the series as well. His crash rates are superb. He only had a terminal crash rate of 6%. All of those are great things. Those couple positives, coupled with the scrappiness of this team, I think it could elevate them to be spots above what their speed is. The problem is I just have too many other guys that I think are going to make a step forward, so I can only have Preece 17th. I needed him to be above what his car speed is because I think his talent does elevate that car. Problem is I don't foresee this team winning any races, and I have some cars in front of him that I'm banking on winning some races, and with race wins being worth an extra 15 points, I think that's going to propel them over Preece into the chase. It was really hard to do this because Preece has a lot of metrics going for him, but they're not all quite elite. They're all just really good. He's a really rock solid driver across the board. Let's move into the playoffs, or into the chase. Gosh, I'm going to mess that up so many times. It's the chase. It's been burned into my brain, my nightmares. The last guy in points in the chase, I've got Shane Van Gisbergen. I think Trackhouse is primed to take a giant step forward in 2026. Here's my reasoning. So for starters, new Chevy body, probably going to be really good. But the speed disparity between Chastain and Suarez the past couple seasons has been massive. Last year on non-drafting ovals, we already mentioned this, the 99 was the 26th fastest car. Chastain was the 12th fastest car. SVG was a rookie last year, so it's not really worth noting, but he was the second fastest on non-drafting ovals. I can excuse that, though. He's barely run any NASCAR-style ovals in his life. Late in the year, he was starting to find his footing, though. He was the 8th quick car at Loudon, and if we look across the whole of the playoffs on non-drafting ovals, he was 3rd fastest. He's starting to get into the ballpark. I already mentioned this, but with RCR, but in 2026, I think that all 3 of these drivers could potentially start to be in a similar ballpark on speed, Zilich, Chastain, and SVG. If they have 3 worthwhile data points to start to push that car in the right direction speed-wise, SVG continues to narrow the gap on ovals. He continues to figure that out. He had the 14th best passing surplus on non-drafting ovals last year, which is really good. For a rookie, that's super impressive. 5th best passing surplus on short tracks, maybe a road course translating to short tracks thing like we used to see with AJ Allmendinger. His restarts, I have to admit, they could use some serious work. A 59% retention rate, 31st in the series. That's not great. The other thing that I think is going to happen is his crash rate was 50% last year. He's naturally going to drop that some. It's going to get better. A top 20 in points, I think, is a modest ask for this team because last year they were 21st in overall points scored. This year, if he were to just win the same amount of road courses and we add his winning bonus points, he would naturally make the playoffs on points. He would make the chase on points, oh my gosh, in 2026. And I think he's going to improve. If he improves and then also gets the bonus points for winning, boom, he's in the chase. I can't talk myself out of it. Put SVG 16th. In 15th, I've got Carson Hocevar. Look, Hocevar actually underperformed last year. As good as he was, the 77 team might be the exact opposite of the 71. The 71 isn't all that fast, but they're just rock solid. Kind of like the 60, actually, but the 60 is a better team. That's not a great example. But the 71, much slower, rock solid. Hocevar, lightning speed, but the 77 was involved in more accidents than anyone else in the entire 2025 season. And I don't think anybody's really going to be that surprised. The highest crash frequency for Carson Hocevar. That said, he was a top 15 restarter. Now, his passing surplus was just below 0, which isn't great, but I expect him to take another step forward in both those metrics in year 3 as he approaches that 100th start marker. Last year, he was the 12th fastest car on non-drafting ovals, and I think he could get even faster in 2026. The 12th fastest car on non-drafting ovals was a Spire car. That's incredible. There's no way the 12th fastest car on non-drafting ovals doesn't make the chase next year. That would be a shock to me. Hocevar may still crash a lot, and that's why I've got him 15th, but I feel comfortable putting him in the chase. Let's move on to 14th. I think Brad Keselowski's still got it. I will not stand for any Brad Keselowski slander. Despite him entering his age 41 season, in 2025, Brad Keselowski was the 10th and 12th best lap time consistency driver on intermediate and short tracks. That's incredible. We'll call it 11. He's the 11th closest to hitting his optimal lap time every single lap. That's fantastic. He's still producing speed this late in his career. He was also 3rd on non-drafting oval pass differential, or passing surplus, whichever we want to call it. Tell me which to call it. I can't make up my mind. But that's pretty fantastic, because usually you expect that with age, the traffic management is going to go down too. That hasn't really happened. Now, despite all of this, he was still the slowest RFK Ford, 20th fastest car on non-drafting ovals. His crash and terminal crash rates were worse than the series averages. Not great. For those reasons, I can't put him any higher than 14th, but I do believe that RFK as a whole is going to elevate Brad. I think that Buescher and Priest, they were faster than him last year. I think some of that's going to get translated to Brad this year, and his lap time consistencies were good. He's got good driver numbers. I think he can make some big noise in 2026, maybe win one more race. Put him in 14th. In 13th, I've got the driver who also scored the 13th most overall points in 2025. Give me Alex Bowman. Look, I don't like continuing to tell the same Alex Bowman story that his job at Hendrick could be in danger, but when you're the 20th best restarter and you have a passing surplus of almost 0, ranking 22nd, and you're 15th and first in intermediate and short track lap time consistency, while in a Hendrick car, you're not giving me a lot of good material to work with. I'm not saying that Alex Bowman's a terrible driver. Let's not go there. But I am saying, I'm also not saying, I guess, that I want to see Corey Day in the 48 car tomorrow. But maybe it is time to start asking those questions a little bit more legitimately than we were asking them back in, call it 2023. It's not that he's terribly slow. The 48 was the 9th fastest car on non-drafting ovals. He's got a 12.9 average optimal lap rank. That's only one position and 1.7 points behind the 9 car of Chase Elliott, his teammate. And because of that and them being one of the less crash-prone teams, I can't see him being any lower than 13th because they do have a good car and he's not going to wreck it. The problem is at some point you start to ask, could we get a guy in the 9th fastest car who can put up better than midfield driver numbers? That's all I'm saying. We can have that conversation another time, though. Moving on to 12th, I've got Chris Buescher in the 17. This is kind of a stagnant part of the field for me. Last year, the 12th highest point-scoring driver was Chris Buescher. I'm keeping him there. He's an interesting case. He's got the 4th worst pass differential and restart retention rate in the series. Those are really bad for a guy as fast as he is. That said, he's got a couple things that he does really well. On non-drafting ovals, he is the fastest RFK Ford, 17th quick. But the split is what's really interesting to me. He's got a top 10 car on intermediate tracks, but he's 27th on the short track. And historically, I think of Buescher as a pretty good short track racer. That's why I've got him so high. I foresee this team having some positive regression. I see RFK getting their cars more level across the board. As I said, with Brad boosting his speed, I foresee Chris Buescher's intermediate speed being transferred to his teammates a little bit, and I see his teammates upping his car's performance on short tracks. So you pair all that with the 5th fastest car on road courses. He's also a threat on super speedways. He's got top 15 lap time consistency on intermediates and short tracks, so he's getting out of the car what we need him to get. One of the 5 cleanest drivers in 2025. I think even if this team is a little bit down on speed, they're a little bit below the 12th fastest car, I think that and even with his low restart and passing numbers, I think that he's going to get all the speed out of it through lap time consistency. He's going to perform on the road courses. He's going to score points on the speedways. He's not going to crash. That's going to move him up a couple positions, put Buescher 12th. Let's talk about 11th. This is where I'm putting Joey Logano. This team is so frustrating to me. They feel so irrelevant. But unlike last year, unlike in 2024, politically, there's actually a couple things to like with this 22 car. I guess one of those is he doesn't crash. He's got the 2nd lowest crash rate in 2025. But let's talk speed, because that's what matters, and that's what confuses me. On short tracks, Logano was the 9th fastest car in the series, which is slower than the rest of his Penske Wood Brother cars, including Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric was 6th or 7th quick. That's crazy to me. On intermediate tracks, though, Joey Logano is 18th. The only Penske car he's faster than is Austin Cindric. Those are not good speed numbers out of Logano. Unacceptable, in my opinion. I think he's better than that. And it's like those aren't unacceptable for any driver, but specifically Joey Logano. He's a champion of the sport. I'm very confused. Despite being this slow, his lap time consistencies are actually pretty good, so at least he's consistently slow. He's the driver with the 3rd and the 2nd most consistent lap times on intermediates and short tracks. The one way that I can find to join the Joey Logano hate bandwagon is looking outside the inconsistent speed, is to look at the restarts. Logano was considered one of the great restarters in the Cup Series, but since the dawn of auto racing analytics, and that was at the start of the next-gen era, he's been perfectly average on restarts going back to 2022. In 2025, though, Logano lost 29 positions, ranking him 29th in the series. He also maintained position on just 50.6% of restarts, again, ranking him 30th. Moral of the story, none of this matters at all. I don't even know why we're having this conversation, because we already know the script. We know what's going to happen. Logano's going to snatch a win or two out of nowhere. One of them's probably going to be a plate win. That's going to give him enough points because he's going to not crash. He's going to be okay to get him into the chase. Then Penske will kind of halfway get their act together in the chase. He'll be much faster in the final 10 races, and then he'll finish a respectable 11th in the series. I don't believe in the jinx, so even year Logano's not a thing to me, but I do think this team's going to pull some magic, and they're going to have mediocre metrics and still finish 11th, because that's just kind of what they do. Let's move on to 10th. I've got Bubba Wallace. That's him moving up one spot from last year. Last year, he had a great season for him. Got that win at the Brickyard. He scored the 11th most points in the series. This year, I'm moving him up to 10th. Last year, he was a top 5 restarter, and this was down for him, because he was the restarter of the year back in 2023. 2025, he got off to a slow start on restarts. But he ended the year with a 76% retention rate, and I'm expecting some positive regression from that. He might go higher in 2026. 9th and 15th fastest per optimal lap rank on intermediates and short tracks. Those are solid, but I think we can see a little improvement there. 14th on the road courses, very solid for somebody that's been called all sorts of things for their road course racing. His passing and defending numbers were mid-pack, which is unfortunate, but he had extraordinarily bad crash numbers in 2025. He had the 2nd worst terminal crash rate in the series, which to me is actually a good thing, because I think that's an outlier. Wallace isn't traditionally one of the worst in the series with crashing. I see him improving in that area, and if he improves from that and everything else stays the same, he'll go higher in the points than he was last year. Move Bubba from 11th up to 10th in 2020. In 9th, this is where I've got to drop Ross Chastain, up one position from where he was in total points last year. By all metrics, top 5s, top 10s, average finish, Chastain had one of his worst seasons at Trackhouse in 2025. But as you all probably know by now, I don't really care about any of those metrics. But if we look at auto racing analytics metrics, in this case, they actually tell basically the same story as the standard statistics, which does not always happen. In 2020, Chastain had the 4th fastest car on non-drafting ovals back in 2022. Incredible start to the next-gen era. But then, in 2023, it was the 10th fastest car. And then in 2024, it was 12th. In 2025, he was 12th again. Trackhouse has not had the speed that this driver needs to deliver as the championship caliber driver that I believe all of his metrics show that he is. And he's shown he is back in 2022. It was the first time he had a chance at it. He lost that one. Now that he's lost one, he should be able to win one. But I believe this team can make a step forward this year. I already talked all about that with the Zilich Van Gisbergen thing. I think that applies to Chastain. I think they could get some more consistently fast cars across the season. Last year, Chastain was a top 5 restarter. Despite fumbling his title of restarter of the year, he was restart of the year in 2024. 2025 came down to the final weeks, but unfortunately his second half of the year restarting just was not good enough. He lost it to Larson. In 2025, Chastain's defending numbers were also way down at the start of the year, which is cause for concern for me, but he did still have the 8th best passing surplus in the series. So I think 2025 is going to turn out to be an outlier in defending numbers. Chastain should return to overall form in 2026. If Chastain returns to the driver I expect him to be in 2026, certainly he can go just a little bit better than he did in 2025, regardless of the car speed. Let's move up to 8th. I've got Chase Briscoe. Now, this is actually a drop for Briscoe. He was 7th in overall points in 2026, or in 2025. But in 2026, I foresee Mr. Tyler Reddick improving, so I had to drop Briscoe a spot. I feel like Chase Briscoe was a surprise to a lot of people, but I personally wasn't one of those people. 2 non-drafting oval wins is pretty much exactly what I expected out of him in a Gibbs car. He was 7th quick last year on non-drafting ovals, according to Optimal Lap Rank. He's a midfield restarter, which is a slight knock against him, but honestly, he's always only been a midfield restarter. He was also only a midfield passer and defender, but when you put together the midfield consistency there, it gives him the 10th best passing surplus in the series, which is pretty solid. His lap time consistency numbers are right there around the top 10. There's a lot to like. He's just rock solid all the way around. And if this team gets hot at the right time, who knows? But based on their lack of an outstanding strength that they have, despite the fact he's a very solid base, I can't put him any higher than 8th place. Let's move up to 7th. Got the other Chase right in front of him, Chase Elliott. I feel very similarly about Chase Elliott as I do Chase Briscoe. The difference is last year, Elliott was a top 5 passer and defender, giving him the 2nd best passing surplus in the series. So we've got at least one strength to work with on Elliott. Historically, Chase Elliott's passing surplus falls closer to the 7th, 10th in the series, so 2025 is a nice uptick. My knock on Elliott, though, is he's still the 18th best restarter in the series, and the 3rd, sometimes 4th fastest Hendrick car. In 2025, he had an average optimal lap rank of 11.2, good enough for 8th in the series, but his teammate Alex Bowman was 9th with a 12.9. And at this point, Chase fans are going to cry Alan Gustafson, but if we look at the lap time consistency, Byron and Larson are 1st and 2nd on intermediate lap time consistency, while Elliott and Bowman are 13th and 14th respectively. I think Chase is a pretty solid driver, but at the moment, Byron and Larson are the duo leaders at Hendrick, and Elliott and Bowman lag behind. 7th for the 9 car. In 6th, give me Tyler Reddick. There's a lot to like with Reddick. Top 10 pass differential, top 10 restarter, top 10 intermediate lap time consistency. He really wasn't the best in anything in 2025, just solid across the board, which I think is kind of unlike him, actually. It was a down year for Reddick. The 45 was top 3 in optimal lap rank on intermediates, though, so that's good. They never had the winning speed in one specific race, but they were always a fast car on intermediate tracks. Their speed has elite potential. I expect more things from this team, though, in 2026. I think that nothing quite fell their way in 2025. Just a numbers game. Certainly at some point, if they're around enough, they're going to hit it one of these times. In fifth, I've got Christopher Bell. Now, I'm very concerned that this could be a decision that bites me. But I'm putting Christopher Bell fifth. Last year, he was third in total points scored. It's hard to place him because, honestly, NASCAR's version of Drive to Survive kind of got Christopher Bell right. I had never noticed it before I watched the show, but he kind of does get overshadowed. The 20 car is the sixth fastest car on intermediate tracks, and then they're the fourth fastest car on short tracks, according to average optimal lap rank. That's really good. He's sixth in lap time consistency on both intermediates and short tracks, another good speed metric. The only knock I can find against this team really is that they have the 14th best passing surplus, which isn't even that bad. But when we're starting to talk about the top five in the points, these are guys that have really good metrics everywhere. He was even the second fastest car on road courses. Problem is there's only one of those in the playoffs. Seventh best restarter. There's a lot to like. He's got midfield crash numbers. Unfortunately, as it stands right now, despite the fact that Bell could totally break out and win the championship, the numbers suggest it's safest to just put him behind these other four drivers. In fourth, moving up one position from how many points he scored last year, give me Denny Hamlin. The new crew chief last year proved to be no problem for Hamlin. The 11 was the fastest car on non-drafting ovals, intermediates, both of those. He was the second fastest car to Blaney on the short tracks, all according to optimal lap rank. It's not just the car, though. Despite being in his age 44 season, Denny Hamlin has been doing his full job producing in this car. He ranks fourth in lap time consistency on both intermediate tracks and short tracks, which I find to be astoundingly impressive, just like when what we talked about with Brad Keselowski. Clearly, he's defeating the aging curve. 39 does not apply to Denny Hamlin or Brad Keselowski. Now, as Hamlin enters his age 45 season, we have to ask the question again, and we ask it every year. Is 2026 his last best chance to win a championship? I believe in 2025, he was too fast, both the car and the driver, to where I can see him going completely off the cliff in 2026. But that said, I could see his traffic management skills decline just a bit more. If we look back to 2022, beginning of the next gen era, Hamlin's passing surplus, in 2022, it was a 12.8. The next year, it was a 13.5. By 2024, it dropped to a 7. And then in 2025, it was an 8. He was second and first in this metric in 2022 and 2023. And then he was still top 10 in 24 and 5, but there was definitely a dip. I'm not suggesting that Denny Hamlin's going to be a sub-20 passer in 2026. I'm not concerned about that. Let's not blow this out of proportion. But I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers continue to drop just a little bit to where he's just still hanging on as a top 10 passer as opposed to a top 3. As for the restarts, they're actually less cause for concern because they've been really stable. Hamlin's never been an elite restarter in the next-gen era. Back in 2022, he had a retention rate of 74, and then the last 3 seasons since then have all been basically exactly a 70%. Just above midfield. I don't see any reason that this would change in 2026, given the consistency. Count me as a believer in Denny Hamlin. He could totally win the championship, but I'm done picking him because I've been bit too many times at this point. I've picked him so many times, and it hasn't worked out. I'm done picking him. I got to pick somebody else. Let's move on to number 3. This is where I'm placing William Byron. The analytics suggest I may regret putting William Byron third in the championship, but I can explain myself. He was the fastest car per median lap rank on non-drafting ovals. But this is exactly why I have multiple speed metrics still, because it allows us to tell this interesting story about William Byron. The 2014 has very consistent speed across the whole race. That's why his median lap rank is so good. But when we look at optimal lap rank, what their top-end speed is, what their ceiling is, Byron ranks 4th in optimal lap rank on both intermediates and short tracks. I'll go over all his fantastic driver metrics, but When it comes down to closing out race victories and top-end performance to win races in a new points format where you get 15 more points than you used to for winning, I like the 5 and the 12 to win more races than I do the 24, just because their top-end speed seems to be a bit better. The joke of Byron starting his career on a computer actually is a bit funny because inside the car, statistically, he kind of is a computer. He's first and third in intermediate and short track lap time consistency. He hits optimal lap all the time. He was the second best restart retention rate last year with a 78%. The one metric of Byron's that is a little concerning is the passing. He was 26th most efficient passer at a 16%. That's not great. But when we do factor in his defense rating to get his surplus passing value, he's only a plus 2% passer. That ranks him 15th in the series, which is fine. The problem is that's the same knock I had against Christopher Bell. Byron does seem to have a little bit more upside with the restarting and the lap time consistency, just barely over Bell, and the Hendrick cars seem to have been a little bit better. He'll be in the mix, but I've got to place him third. That brings us down to the top two. In second, I've got Ryan Blaney. Let's get the elephant in the room out with Ryan Blaney. I've got him second, but he very easily could win the championship, or he could finish in the bottom part of the top 10. This team had a couple mechanical failures last year, causing DNFs, but equally concerning to me as the mechanical issues is the crashes. In 2025, Blaney had the fourth most crash-related DNFs in the series. That said, Blaney was the fifth fastest car on intermediate tracks, and more importantly, comfortably the fastest car on short tracks per optimal lap rank. Blaney's driver numbers were absolutely elite in 2025. He was easily the best passer of the year with a surplus passing value of 17%, a whole 5% better than second place. That's the best passing surplus since the creation of auto racing analytics at the start of the next-gen era. Blaney was also the fifth best for lap time consistency on intermediates and short tracks. One of the more interesting stories to me, though, is in 2025, Ryan Blaney was kind of a tale of two halves in the restart department. To start the year, Blaney was absolutely garbage on restarts, 26th in the series with a retention rate of 59%. I'm pretty sure we said that was roughly an Austin Dillon number earlier in the... You can go back and fact check me. But in the second half of the year, Blaney was the best restarter with an 84% retention rate. Phenomenal. If we can get the second half Ryan Blaney in the 2026 chase and Penske brings their typical playoff speed and they limit DNFs, this team should 100% take the title fight all the way to Miami. And now, I don't think this should come as a shock to anyone. I've got Kyle Larson as my 2026 NASCAR Cup Series champion. I don't know how you pick against him. In this system, I don't see how you beat him. They're the modern-day Jimmy and Chad in the 48, in my opinion. Now we just have Cliff and Kyle in the 5. 2025 was statistically a down year for the 5 team, and yet they still deserved to win the championship. They scored more points than anybody all year. They were the second and third fastest car per average optimal lap rank on intermediates and short tracks. I don't see any reason that they couldn't improve one position in both of those. The short tracks are still on intermediate tracks, Larson made the second most consistent lap time. The short tracks, a bit of an Achilles heel to him. He's down in 11th for lap time consistency, which still not horrible. In 2024, he was the best passer of the year. 2025 was a bit of a down year for him. He was 8th best in pass efficiency, but he was still able to achieve a pretty good surplus of 10%, good enough for 4th in the series. I see those numbers coming back to full form in 2026, and he very well could be the passer of the year again. The one thing this team did have fully on their game in 2025, though, was the restarts. Larson was the restarter of the year with a series best 0.9% restart retention rate. He's been excellent on restarts every year the next gen. He should contend for restart of the year again in 2026. And now we got to touch on the Cliff Daniels effect because Larson's clearly going to do his job across all the driver metrics. This team just doesn't quit. Larson has a fairly middle-of-the-road crash rate. Say what you will about Larson being over-aggressive to produce speed. His crash rate isn't one of the worst in the series. It's midfield. But Cliff Daniels overcomes that because they find a way to get the car back out there and get finishes anyway, which in this new chase format where points matter so much, suddenly that's going to be a really important skill. Their terminal crash rate is actually tied for best in the series. And so when it comes to grinding out a day and still scoring points anyway, I don't think there's going to be anybody better out there than the 5-car. And that's it. After just over 1 hour, I have successfully predicted exactly where every driver is going to finish 36-1 in the entire NASCAR 2026 season. If you made it this far, thank you. We'll grant you some sort of reward for your accomplishment. If you use code PREDICT26 on Auto Racing Analytics, you will get your first month on autoracinganalytics.com. You can get access to all the data that I've been talking about this entire video if you enjoyed it for just $1. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you do, go take a look at the data for yourself. I'd appreciate your assistance. This is just a side hustle for me that I enjoy doing in my free time, and it's very time intensive. So if you could help to make it a little bit more worth the incredible amount of time that goes into this kind of stuff, I would greatly appreciate it. If you do want to sign up for a full annual membership in 2026, that is something you can do now. If you do, shoot me a message. No guarantees, but if I have an Auto Racing Analytics t-shirt in your size, I'd try and send one to you if you sign up for an annual membership. So just let me know. No guarantees, but I'll look and see if I've got one for you. Thank you so much for listening. Let's revisit this at the end of the 2026 season and see how it turns out. I'll see you after Daytona. Thank you all for listening.